Well, this is the last Sunday of the month, and in this spiritual community, the last Sunday of the month is what we call Aloha Sunday. We celebrate Hawaiian music, we have hula dancing, and I always speak to an ancient Hawaiian proverb. These proverbs were collected in a wonderful book written by Dr. Mary Kawena Pukui called Olelo No'eau. Olelo No'eau means wisdom proverbs. And so we're doing that for a couple of important reasons. First of all, we love this place called Hawaii. And when you love something, you want to be one with it. So we look at the spiritual traditions of Hawaiian people and the way that they looked at the world. And we find the places where we can meet in common, where what the Hawaiians practiced as part of their spiritual history and what we know and believe are the same. And in that way, we get to feel at one. And that is a beautiful feeling. So today, the phrase we're going to look at is this one. Aohe hana nele i ka uku. Aohe is a Hawaiian word meaning no or not. Hana means to work or to do. You know the word pauhana means when finished work. Nele means return or recompense. It comes back, repayment. And uku, now I know you probably think it means flee. And if it had an apostrophe before it, it would mean flee. But it doesn't. So it doesn't mean flee. Big difference. Uku in this sense means your payment, your wages, the things you have earned. That's your uku, what you've earned, believe it or not. And for most of us, it feels about this big. Right? Not most of us. For some, it feels like an uku. It's my uku is uku. So kind of what this is saying is no deed, no work, no action is without the uku. And Mary Kawena Pukui says this: no deed lacks a reward. Everything we do has some result. We know this in unity. We call it the law of cause and effect, where we say metaphysically everything we do, everything we think, everything we say has a result to it. And that's an important thing for us to be aware of as we live our life. Now, this is actually a law in physics as well. Some of you may recognize Isaac Newton. And he described it as this. He said the acceleration of an object is due to the net force of the sum of the force of that object, which is applied in the same exact actual direction and is directly proportional to the mass of that object. But you knew that. I know you did. If you say, well, what is that? Well, you go look into the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, the book of Numbers, and it's this way: be sure your sins will find you out. Pretty simple. That's what Newton meant, is that everything we do is going to have some kind of a consequence to it. And that's really important for us to understand. We call this, in the spiritual world, often in the religious world, this is called karma. Now, this is a quotation from the Buddha, Gautama Buddha. I am the owner of my karma. I inherit my karma. I am born of my karma. I am related to my karma. I live supported by my karma. Whatever karma I create, whether good or evil, that I shall inherit. Whew. That's a good thing. We learn it obtusely in our culture here. Although on this campus, our preschool children learn it specifically. I think it was the second week I was here. I was walking by. If you don't know where, we have a preschool with 95 children in it from the ages of 2 to 4. And they're here every day, Monday through Friday. It's fantastic. And they're learning to live life with unity principles and spiritual principles of truth. It's really amazing. And there's this little girl, she was crying, just crying right up, standing outside by the gate. And I said, oh, honey, what's the matter? She said, I have a consequence. I didn't even learn that word till I was a sophomore in high school. And they learn it right off the bat. And boy, do we need that in our culture. I think it's one of the things that's gone wrong with us is people have been growing up protected from the consequences of their actions. And so we don't learn. And these children are learning consequence. Karma in the Hawaiian tradition, in the tradition called the hana tradition, which is kind of a metaphysical, spiritual Hawaiian tradition, the concept of karma is in a word that they called unihipili, which actually kind of means the subconscious or unconscious metaphysically. In actuality, it's a word that refers to the energy that is given to an object from another person once they pass away. That object has their energy, their spirit in it. So metaphysically, it means that everything that happens around us gets planted in our subconscious and our unconscious mind. Everything that has ever happened to us is planted there in the unihipili. And so they have ways of dealing with that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So it's really all deeply and powerfully related to this idea of karma. The Buddha really knew that karma begins with an intention. That's the most powerful thing. Charles Fillmore is the co-founder of this spiritual movement called Unity, and he said all things have their cause, and every cause is mental. So everything that we are creating in the outside world, it started here, which is why we don't teach blame or victimhood here. If things are happening in my life, I have to come back and look here. That's why I say very clearly to people at the end of every day, if you want to change your life, we must change our thinking. Because it all begins here. Everything here. So karma is not all about bad stuff. It's all about everything that happens. All the good stuff. Karma is a lot about living in this moment correctly, in what we call righteous way, in a right way. Because the way we live right now is what's going to create our future. Because that's where the consequences come. Do you understand? We can't really do anything about the future. Do you understand that? The future is absolutely beyond our control. All we can do is this moment. So this moment, I make right choices. I make loving decisions. I make powerful connections inside and outside, and the consequences come. The next day, I do the same thing. I create loving choices. I stay with a connection with God, and the consequences come. And the next thing you know, I can look down the road 6 months from now, and I'll say, how did I get here? This is amazing. I created that future by making right choices. And it doesn't always seem right. It doesn't even always feel right. I want to tell you a story, a Chinese story about a young boy named Ping. Ping loved to garden. He was totally fascinated and embroiled in growing things. Also in this same ancient Chinese culture, there was an emperor who also loved to garden and knew all about gardening. Now the emperor was very old, and he knew that he was coming to the end of his life. He had no children, so he wondered how to pick the next emperor before he died. Who would be the heir to that throne? And he had an idea. He called all of the children of the kingdom together. They all lined up outside his house. They were all coming. They were excited. He gave each one of them some seeds and said, I want you to grow these seeds in a pot. And you come back in 1 year, and I will look at your pots, and then I will decide who will be the emperor. So, everybody was excited, and Ping went up, and he got his seeds as well, too. And he was very excited because he knew he was a good gardener. And he took the seeds home, and he put them in the pot. Now, he did all the exact right things. He had it in his mind to do the right things. He watered them. He gave them the right amount of fertilizer and sun. And then at the end of the year, all the children are bringing their fantastic pots that are loaded with flowers. They're gorgeous. They're bringing them all to the emperor, and they're so excited. But Ping, his pot was empty. It was desolate. Nothing was growing. He was ashamed, and he was embarrassed, and completely confused. He didn't even want to go. He told his father, I'm not going. And his dad said, no. The king gave orders for all the children to bring their pots back. You have to go. So, very sadly, he took his pot, and he went there with all the other children who were showing off their beautiful pots. And the emperor is looking at all of the beautiful flowers and the greenery. And way off in the back, he sees Ping standing there with his empty pot. And the emperor says, you, with the empty pot, you will be the next emperor. People were stunned. Why was that? How could that be? And the emperor said, when you came to get your seeds, before you came, I put all of the seeds into the oven and I cooked them so they would not grow. Only one of you has sown the truth, and that one shall be the emperor. And of course they lived happy forever after. Whoa. Okay, so now the whole point of that is this. Sometimes when we're doing all the right stuff, it doesn't look like it's coming around. You know what I'm saying? I've done all the right things, so why is this happening? This is the marvelous thing about karma. Karma is this energy that the universe says, echo them, and we are going to get echoed. It may not come where we think it may come from, but it will absolutely, as we say in Hawaii, Garen's ball barons, come back this way. So as we look at karma, there's two things that we need to consider. And I want to talk to you. I mean, I'm really doing like a little 15-minute thing for you today that really is like a year in an ashram in India. So just know that you're being very, very too much today, very much too much you today. There are a couple of things that we need to deal with this issue of karma. The first part is we need to deal with the past karma, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have to make sure that in the present we're doing the right thing, and that's very simple. The past is the one that none of us really wants to deal with, and it's incredibly important. It's important because of this. Remember, every moment we are creating the consequences for the future. And if we are creating them from a consciousness that is wounded, from a consciousness that is angry, from a consciousness that is confused in the past, we are going to create more angry, more confusion, and everything else that was back there. We're going to recreate the past. Now, that's what we don't want to do. That's karma that's happening there. So how do we heal that? There's a simple little kind of formula. I've given it to you once several years ago in a different setting, but it's this: uncover, discover, and recover. The uncovering part is, remember we had that unihipili, that sort of unconscious part of our mind? That's where those things, those imprints of our life are. And we need to bring those things forward to be healed. That's this uncovering part. The Hawaiians say it goes through awareness, but the Hawaiians talk about it like this. They say, Ipiano olalo, take from the darkness into the light that which is below. So we take those things that are like subconscious things and we bring them into the light. Now, the way that happens, very simply, is be aware and ask questions. Look for patterns. Now, the awareness, it's about our intention to do that. You've seen those guys on the beach with the little metal beachcomber things? They probably irritate everybody, right? When you're sitting there, don't come near me with that thing. Yeah, I know, you're like this laying in the beach. Don't make fun of those guys. They're rich. They're looking for jewelry, coins, rings, earrings, anything metal that's been dropped in the sand. I know a guy who used to do that every day, and he had a treasure chest in his house full of incredible things. I mean, just amazing stuff that he found on the beach. He had an intention to go looking. He had this device that would help him see, and then he got out and walked on the beach and looked. So a lot of us say, oh yeah, I like to heal my past, I really would. But we're not going to look. We're not going to use any of the tools to go and do it. We're not going to actually go and take a look. But we say, that's a good idea. Yeah, I should do that someday. It's not going to happen until we actually begin to do that work. So I want to give you a couple of questions. I'm going to give you just a little hint today for things to think about. A couple of important questions in this search in your life. About 99% of us have powerful experiences that happen when we're children from the age of about 3 to 10 that give us two fundamental messages about ourselves. And they're not happy messages. The first message is, and see if you can think about a time in your life when you were a child and you got this message. The first one is, something's wrong with me. Second one is, I don't belong. Those are two powerful messages that 99% of us get from our unwittingly loving families one way or another. We get those messages as children. And then what happens is it creates a lens through which we see the world, Everything we see the world through that color. And then here's the really bad part. We start collecting evidence to prove that we're right. I don't belong, and I'm going to have proof for it. I'm going to look around and see, oh, where? There. I don't belong there. I'm going to write that down. And pretty soon we have this enormous treasure chest of untruths about ourselves that affect everything we see. Now, there's a way to get rid of that, and we'll talk about that. But first, be aware of it. And as you think about these things in the upcoming weeks, think about where was that and what was that. We start to look for the patterns, how we replicated that. A lot of us have been in situations where we keep hitting up against the wrong thing, the wrong relationship, the wrong job, the wrong living arrangement, the wrong this. And we kind of, why is this happening? Well, we need to look with intention. We need to begin to do, that's the discover part. And that was a part that's going to require great courage on all of us. But we are not going to make spiritual progress as spiritual beings if we don't have the courage to clean up that part of our life. Second thing is to discover. And that's where we get to understand it. That's where we get to take it. The Hawaiians say it this way. Bring down that which is above by means of the light. And they say, e iho ana luna. So we're taking that, we discovered, we're lifting it to a light of understanding and intelligence. This is where we get to be guided by the Holy Spirit to show us these things. We understand them, and then when we understand them, their power dissolves. I know this is true. I've told this story maybe several years ago, and it's worth telling again. It's about myself, so I like to tell it. When I was about 18 years old, I was the youth minister of a Baptist church. Can you believe it? At Wahiawa, up in the middle of the island. And one night we had a talent show. And I did this talent little thing that I did. It's called a spoonerism. Do you know what those are? That's where you tell this little story and you turn the letters all around. And I told the story of Rindersella and her mugly other and her two sad blisters lived in a corn fun tree. Does that ring a bell with anyone? Yeah. The chintz farming? Yeah, okay. So I told that story, and of course everybody laughed, and that was really a big old hoot, har, 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 har. And my mom and dad, Harold and Shirley, were there to watch. So I was coming back to the table where they sat. I was coming over to the table, and this man turns over to my father and says, "Boy, that boy, you're sure is talented." And my dad said, "That's not my boy, that's Shirley's boy." Well, that was just a big piece of evidence. Do you understand? That was a huge piece of evidence that I don't belong and something's wrong with me, and I'm going to go home and write that down. In fact, I'm not going to forget it for the next 45 years. And I didn't. So fast forward 45 years. My parents are at the end of their life, and I'm at home taking care of them. So I'm taking care of my dad, and we've healed our life. We're beautiful. We're really tight, and I know he's towards the end of his life. So I figured, I'm going to get it out there all on the table. I'm just going to tell him what it was. My therapist said this was a good thing, so I'm going to do it. So I said to him, "Dad, do you remember that time I was here and you said that's not my Shirley's boy?" Well, it was like a stake in my heart, kind of thing. And my dad's looking at me, and he's got this funny look on his face, and he says, "Son, I don't remember that at all." And I'm going, wait, I carried this around for 45 years, and you don't even remember it? Well, of course he doesn't remember, because to him it didn't mean anything. He was just trying to find some awkward way to deal with someone praising him about me, and he didn't know quite how to handle it, so he just deflected. It was a joke. It meant nothing. But to me, it meant so much. So I realized in that moment, I had given it meaning. It didn't have meaning on its own. I gave it that. So here's the great insight. If I gave it the meaning, I can take it away. And I did. I packed it away. And despite the fact that occasionally I tell the story, I don't think about it anymore. Because I know I belonged. And I know there was nothing wrong with me. That's how we heal that experience. And when we do, when we have understanding, we can heal amazing, amazing things. Sri Ramana Maharishi says, until realization, there will be karma. That is action and reaction. After realization, there will be no karma. You see that piece of not belonging, not being there, that piece of stuff, that was done. I was free. I was liberated from that. The Bhagavad Gita says, verily there is no purifier in this world like knowledge. And the great knowledge I want to give you is the clarity of what was then, which is probably extremely distorted, and what is now. As you go back to look through your life in those things, I want you to keep that in mind. The way we can remember that very simply is with a hand gesture sometimes, because these things can be emotional, and they should be, because what you don't feel, you're not going to heal. I want you to go back and feel it, and then examine it and find the truth. So here's what we do, is we say, when we see that stuff, we say, that was then, this is now. That was then, this is now. Try it with me, ready? That was then, this is now. So if things, they screwed up, somebody told me I couldn't sing, that was then, this is now. Yeah? Somebody tells me, you'll never have a motorcycle license, that was then, this is now. Okay? Do you understand? Because as long as I keep that back there and I'm free here, I can create whatever I want. That was then, this is now. That is incredibly important. So this last one is about recovering. And the recovering, to me, the way I'm using that is to say, okay, once we've done that, we've discovered it, we've uncovered it, and we've looked at it, and we've put it back there, we get to recover our lives. And the way we do that has nothing to do with that anymore. It is about what we are going to create in this moment. We set an intention in this moment. I am going to make a fantastic life. And I've been giving you a simple formula for that. And I'm going to keep repeating it forever until you get it this year. Read a little, meditate more, and what'd they say? Think about God all the time. You read a little, meditate more, and think about God all the time. Now just imagine if that's what I do today. I read a little, I meditate more, and I think about God all day. Tomorrow, I read a little, I meditate more, and I think about God all day. Next day, I do. Can you imagine the consequences that I am creating down the road? Can you imagine that? And 6 months down, I'll get there and look and go, how did I get here? Very simple. Those things. I am creating it each day. I didn't get here by anything from my past. I got here in this moment. The Bhagavad Gita says, thus shall you be freed from the bonds of actions yielding good and evil fruits, with the mind steadfast in the yoga, which means a spiritual practice of renunciation, which means that was then, that's renunciation, and liberated, you shall come unto me. There's a promise there that once we do that, we will be liberated and we can move forward. In his letter to the Ephesians, the Apostle Paul said it beautifully, and he gave us a little admonition that I want to share with you. He said, since then that we no longer have the excuse of ignorance, everything, and I do mean everything, connected with that old way of life has to go. Get rid of it. And then take on an entirely new way of life, a God-fashioned life, a life renewed from the inside and working itself into your conduct as God absolutely reproduces himself in you. Is that what you want? Do you want that reproduction of God in you? Then that's what we need to do. Get rid of that. Pledge and commit in this moment to read a little, meditate more, and think about God all the time, and God will be recreated in us. Will you close your eyes with me for just a moment, please? This is a time when you can connect with God. There's nothing for you to fear. This is the presence of one who loves you absolutely and unconditionally and wants you to be healed. wants you to be at peace, and wants you to know above and beyond all else that you belong here. There is nothing wrong with you. You were created in love, to be love. So in these quiet moments, I'm going to invite you to make a commitment to heal and to live this moment forward, keeping your mind focused on God. As we come now in the sacred and holy silence.